What is up, Need for Speed racers? It is I, your wheelman, Alex Cornnut, and we're here with the Pagani Huayra base builds. B, A, A+, S, and S+, all wrapped up into one video just for you. So if you want to build this car at any tier, we've got the one-stop shop. Nil has had these builds. I've been sitting on them for over a month. We've had a lot of other stuff come out of the gate, so I wanted to finally bring this to you. Had a couple guys in the crew asking for Pagani builds, so here we are. I got you set up. We start with B, we work our way to S+. This car shines at a couple different levels. It's lackluster at others, but if you are balling out of control and you want to blow right around $10 million and buy a bunch of these, you can do that. I think I ended up spending right around 18 to do all the testing and everything when we finally started doing this build. These cars are wild expensive, and buying every motor at S+ to find out where the horsepower is at is really expensive. I'll show you that in a minute. But let's dig into B class first and foremost. The engine that you are going to start with at B is the bronze, or excuse me, the basic iron all the way to the left. The first motor, it is the 3.6 liter V6 308 brake horsepower, and we leave it right there. For the parts, iron basic everything. You touch nothing on the performance side of things except for nitrous. You are going to put an elite bottle in it. At B, having an elite bottle is really what you need to do to keep up with some of the other cars, because we've got some bangers in B class. The Cougar's fast, the Testarossa is fast, the RSR is legendary. We've got some really crazy cars there, and so if you want to even hold a candle to that, you've got to have that elite bottle so you can nitrous off the line and catch up. Real talk though, this car is like mid-tier in the B class. It'll beat some of the other cars, but it's not cheese by any means, and so it does suffer for that reason. But the rest of these parts, don't touch them, don't upgrade them, leave them stock. We do run Elite Platinum road suspension. We leave the brakes alone, Pro Silver brakes. Elite Platinum road tires or grip tires. You can do whatever. I run the grip tires because it does help the car turn a lot. The road tires, if you run those, some people are saying it's a little faster on the tarmac, just depends. The car handles really good, so you can do either of those, you guys. It's not going to affect your performance at all as far as the PI number goes, so you might experiment with those tires. I run the grips. That's me. You're going to leave the clutch alone. Sport Bronze clutch. 5-speed Sport Bronze transmission. Don't worry about the differential. Leave it stock. The car with grip tires goes 100%, no problem. Auxiliaries, nitrous drift, nitrous grip. That's what I run because I micro drift. Pay attention here. This next part is really important. The handling on this car is very particular. I run 100% grip, as I do. Watch what happens with the downforce slider. Watch how many PI points we can change with just moving the downforce. We go from 159 all the way down to 147. You can take 12 points right out of the car just by changing the downforce. What this means, you guys, is this car responds to downforce in a big way. There are some cars that doesn't matter. They don't care what you do with the slider. You can go from high to low, it changes nothing. There's other cars where you get big swings like this, where you're getting 12, 15, 20 points, depending on what class, just by changing the downforce. That means the car is going to respond heavily to low downforce. It doesn't need it to grip. Run the downforce slider all the way low, and you can run a car with less horsepower, and it's going to perform better than a high downforce car with higher horsepower. We tested this, we ran different builds, we tried different things, and really, the Pagani Huayra especially really likes low downforce, and then you build the car around having that downforce slider as far to the left as you can. So keep that in mind when you're building these, you guys. I've seen a lot of people make mistakes with this car specifically, where they run it all the way high and then they wonder why the car feels lackluster. It's because it's got too much downforce. It's really sluggish. Run that low and you'll see this thing wake up. Traction control off. Drift entry. Brake tap. It's going to give you the B class 159 Pagani Huayra. 150 top speed. Maybe. That's a nil bot number. 54060 doesn't matter. 308 horsepower, 275 on the torque. This fits at B class. It's not exciting at B class, so let's just put it that way. But it's not bad. It's not bad. The elite bottle is really what makes it viable, because you have so much NOS that you can really do a lot with it. But realistically speaking, you're probably not going to take a lot of B-class playlists if you're playing against somebody that's in a Rosa or in an RSR. So, transparency there. let's move on to A. Start waking things up. All right, here we are at A class. Now, it does start to get better as we progress through the classes. So each car is a little more exciting than the last, that's for sure. A class, it's competitive, not record-breaking, but competitive. The engine that you're running is the basic iron 308 brake horsepower 3.6 liter V6, all the way to the left, full Beyonce on the motor selections. For the parts, you are going to run Sport Bronze Induction, Iron Basic ECU, Iron Basic Fuel System, Iron Basic Exhaust, Super Gold Centrifugal Supercharger. Here's the deal. This car does very well without any induction. You don't need to have the turbos. You don't need to have the superchargers. So when that's the case, when the car does well, naturally aspirated, that tells us that we really don't need to have the supercharger for the low end and we don't need the turbo for the high end. So the best fit is going to be the centrifugal because it actually gives you the highest horsepower and torque values, but at a very limited window. And so because the car does fine without it, throw that in there and then you're getting all the benefits of both, even though they're lesser. So it's not as good as a single turbo at the top end, and it's definitely not as good as a supercharger at the low end, but it does both okay, and so it really wakes up the motor. So we found that overall at A class, the centrifugal really was the way to go. We did a lot of testing to get there, you guys. You're gonna run Sport Bronze Nitrous, Elite Platinum Road Suspension, as we do. Leave the brakes alone, Pro Silver. Elite Platinum Grip Tires, Sport Bronze Clutch, leave it alone. 5-speed Sport Bronze Transmission. Don't worry about the diff. This car gets to 100% grip without any differential changes, so don't worry about spending money there, you guys. We're already into this car for millions. Auxiliaries, nitrous drift, nitrous grip. That's what I run. Same thing with the handling. 100% full Beyonce to the left. Steering sensitivity, I run 2 clicks high. You guys do you. A lot of the crew are running that low, so do whatever's best. Downforce all the way low. Look what happens. We're 209 right there. If we run it all the way high, 194. It's like 15-point swing. And look at the top speed. We go from 159 all the way up to 172. There's a lot going on with that downforce slider. If you don't believe me on this stuff, or you're curious, go test this. Like, pick a car in a class, drive it for a couple of playlists, and then run the downforce slider all the way high, cram in some more horsepower, and then test it again and see what you think. I think you're going to find that you really like the low downforce with this car specifically. Traction control off, drift entry, brake tap. That is going to give you the A209 Pagani Huayra BC. 172 top speed. Maybe with a little draft you might get there. Probably not. 422 on the horsepower, 356 on the torque. Let's move on to A+. Now it gets a little more exciting. A+, we're halfway there. This car at A+ does very well. It is not Testarossa speeds in a straight line, and it is not Corner King speeds of the RSR, but it does do very good turns. It's very predictable. It's a lot of fun to drive. With a good driver mod, this car can be very, very competitive. I really have no problem driving at A+. I rather like it. And the 185 top speed is attractive. It's not slow. Mind you, it does take a little bit of time to get that top end. The gears are kind of long in this car, so kind of work with that. But overall, it's a competitive car. It's a lot of fun. Let's dig in. For the engine on this one, you are doing the Sport Bronze 404 brake horsepower 3.0 liter inline 6. It is the third motor over. 1, 2, 3. Sport Bronze. For the parts, you are running Gold Super Induction. You are running Sport Bronze ECU. You are running Sport Bronze Fuel System. You are running Sport Bronze Exhaust. You are running Super Gold Centrifugal Supercharger. Like I said, you guys, if this car works naturally aspirated, the centrifugal is kind of the best fit. It allows us to get the slider all the way to the left. We're pretty far to the left in this car's case, so that way you can get the most out of it. Sport Bronze Nitrous. Elite Platinum Road Suspension. Silver Pro brakes. Elite Platinum Grip Tires. Sport Bronze Clutch. Sport Bronze 5-speed transmission. Leave the differential alone. Iron Basic. It still gets your slider all the way to the left. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can run it Elite Platinum if you want. All it does is move your slider further to the right. Anti-Beyonce. As I always do with my auxiliaries, nitrous drift, nitrous grip, you guys. Those micro drifts are wild important if you want to be fast. Handling. All the way, full Beyonce to the left, 100%. Steering sensitivity, I run 2 clicks to the right. As you guys know, that's what I do here. Downforce, go all the way to the left, back it off 1. That's going to give you Ace 269. You can run it all the way low, but you have to change up the part configuration a little bit. That was a happy 269. And with this car was really weird at A+. We could hit 268 for the PI points, like all easy, no problem. 269 was a little harder to hone into, so it was either run 95% grip with a little less horsepower, or run 100% grip, a little more horsepower, and then back it off 1 point low. So that's what I defaulted to. Nil runs it the other way with a little less horsepower, but running full low downforce. So in this case, 100% grip, go all the way to the left, full Beyonce, low downforce, and then back 1, 269. Traction control off, drift entry, brake tap. That is going to give you the A+ Pagani Huayra. 185 top speed, 505 on your horsepower, 506 on your torque. A very balanced, very predictable vehicle. This is pretty fun. I like this car at A+. Let's move on to S. Here we are at S. This car's pretty good at S. One of my guys, Seike, he ran a 201 on Blue Collar with it recently. We had some people in my Discord asking for the build, so that's why I cranked this out today, because it's been sitting in the lab, we've been sitting on it, and now people are asking for it because we're running it, so I want to bring that to you guys. The S car is very good. It is not F40 times, but it's competitive. It does really well. It's a very good handling car. I would say this is on par with like the Ford GT. So, take that for what it is. If you like grippy boys and you like those good handling cars, this is going to be that. It's very, very good. Easy to drive. For the engine, for the S class, you will run the 3.6 liter V6 all the way to the left. That is the Iron Basic first motor. For the parts, you are running Gold Super Induction. You are running Elite Platinum ECU. You are running Elite Platinum fuel system. Elite Platinum exhaust. Elite Platinum centrifugal supercharger. This car does really good with the Sentry. It is not something I recommend for most cars because most cars are actually poop with it, but this one, pretty damn solid. Really caught me off guard because I talked so much trash on it. I swear, like, the game's coming back to bite me. Like, oh, hey, here's a car that does good with it. You want to hold on to that? It's like, not really, but it's pretty solid. Bronze Sport Nitrous. Elite Platinum road suspension. Same thing. Pro Silver brakes. Elite Platinum grip tires. This car comes equipped with the roads. You might try that. We're learning that the road tires are good with certain cars on certain tracks. We're to the point now to where as a crew, we are building specialists. Where it used to be we would build cars for playlists, and now we're chasing times because we're kind of running out of things to stay competitive with. Like the Blacklist is a lot of fun, but the guys that are already established on the Blacklist are now working on being really fast at specific tracks, and we're working on our times. And so that being the case, we're now building cars specifically to do one track out of a playlist and then do a record time there and then maybe suffer on the other 2 races. So that being the case, we've found that road tires have a very special spot with certain cars on certain tracks to generate that boost, to get different types of grip turns or micro drifts. This game's very in depth if you're willing to really experiment and chase tenths of seconds off of track times. But that's how deep we are in my camp, you guys. If you're ever curious about how fast we run, come and join the Discord. Just ask to be a friend status, which we give to everybody that asks, and you can then see the lap times. We've got some banger lap times as a crew. Currently, I only hold 1 record on the entire leaderboard out of all the tracks, and that happens to be Rapid Transit. But we're having a lot of fun. Sport Bronze clutch. Sport Bronze 5-speed transmission. No differential. Leave that as Iron Basic. Nitrous drift, nitrous grip, as we do. Handling. 95% grip. This is one of those cars that if you go all the way down, it's a 328. So because we want to have that 329, and it actually helps the 0 to 60 statistic, which is stupid because if you launch this car like you're supposed to and you get a perfect start, you're going faster than 60 well before 2.9 seconds, I guarantee it. But anyway, 95% grip if you want 329, or run 100% grip if you want to do 328. If you care about that last PI point, it's right there. Steering sensitivity, I'm 2 clicks high. Downforce, all the way low, full Beyonce. That's where we run it. Look what we do. If we go from all the way low downforce, watch the top speed and the PI. We go from 329 PI point, 191 top speed. You can find 4 points, but the top speed doesn't change. You're like, okay, well, if that's the case, maybe we would want to add some horsepower there, put something in there. You don't. I can definitively say that low downforce is what this car wants, and we proved that with all the previous builds and all the other classes. As you creep towards the top end, the PI points don't change nearly as much. There's not as much of a swing, but it really does make quite a difference on how the car handles. And so when we do these base builds, we learn a lot of things about the car at the top end because we experiment so much with it at the low end of things. And that's something that I didn't expect to be learning. Myself and Nil and the crew guys, as we work on these cars, we really learn a lot about how the game performs. And when you can take a car that's meant to be out here on the fast end, but you work with it and develop it at the low end, you learn what it likes. And then when you're at the top end, stuff that doesn't look like it makes a difference really does make a difference, but it doesn't show it on the paper as much. So it's pretty fun. We're pretty in-depth over here, and I really like that. Traction control off, drift entry, brake tap. That's going to give you the Pagani at S, 191 top speed. It's pretty comfortable there. You can redline, take it up to about 195, 196. 914 on your horsepower, 710 on your torque. Overall, good S car. Let's go to S+. All right, last car on the list. We are at S+. Here's the deal. It's lackluster. It's kind of like the Ford GT. It's not bad, but it's definitely not super competitive with some of the other cars. I've got an S+ car for you tomorrow that I'm going to release that I think people are sleeping on, and it's actually like the 3rd fastest car in the game. Pretty wild. So it's a lot of fun to drive. I'm going to bring that to you. I think you guys will enjoy it. But for now, let's stick with what we've got in front of us, and that's the Pagani Huayra at S+. I want to show you the difference here, you guys. I bought every engine and bought every part for this car. I may not financially recover from it. It costs a fortune, but regardless, I do it for you guys. We're here. That being the case, I did have to sell a bunch of my other cars to be able to make this build video work today. If you go through, the Iron Basic 3.6 liter V6 is the motor that we equip. That's what you want to use. It gives you the best performance, like horsepower and torque values at the high end. If you go through and we do this one, the next motor, the V12, we got less horsepower, less torque. Not worth it. But it says it does 231. That's a Nilbot stat. Less horsepower and less torque. I'll take this one that does 227, and at least it might get to 227. When you take away that horsepower, you're not going to have so much of a top end. So keep that in mind. As we move down the list, the 3.0 liter i6, it's got a little more torque, but we actually took 110 horsepower out of it, so it's not going to perform at the top end. It says it does 230. Do you believe that? Like, we're robbing it of 110 horsepower. I don't think that's worth it. We move on to the next one, the 2.9 liter V6. It's got about 50 less ponies, about 20 more torque. It's not worth it. It says it does 230. We move on to the next, the 6.2 liter V8. It has 876 on the horsepower, so once again, about 50 less. It's got about 15 more torque. That's not worth it. Don't build that motor. The 7.0 V8, it's got a little more torque, right around 40, but it does have less ponies. You're looking at about 90 less horsepower. Not worth it. The V10, 5.2 liter V10. There's two 5.2 liter V10s. I'm not sure which motors they are. Apparently they're the same. That one, 878, not as good. 598, way less torque. That's not good. It's going to lose a lot of acceleration there. The 5.2 V10, which is the 601 brake horsepower, it's got 911 horsepower, so you're about 20 off, but 612 on your torque, so not worth it at all. And then you got the 6.0 V12, which is the last motor. You'd think the furthest motor down the list would be the best one. 878 for your horsepower, 702 on your torque. So that's what I'm showing you guys. Like, sometimes the motor furthest to the left, the most basic cheap one, builds to be the highest performing engine. And so when you guys are doing your builds, if I don't have a build video, come and ask, get in the Discord, ask what engine's good for platform to start with, and we'll give that to you usually. We don't really like to gatekeep information. If it's something to make a build video on, we might not put it out there for everybody, but more often than not, if you need pointed in the right direction so you're spending your money in the right place, especially on these expensive cars, we'll hook you up. So that's where we go. 3.6 liter V6. Furthest to the left, iron basic, 934 once we get done building it. It's Elite Platinum, all of it, boys and ladies. So Elite Platinum induction, Elite Platinum ECU, Elite Platinum fuel system, Elite Platinum exhaust, Elite Platinum single turbo. There's a couple different ways you can go with this one. If you do the screw, it's going to give you 30 less ponies, but 15 more torque. That's not worth it. You want the horsepower. You want the ponies at the top end. It's going to help the car actually get up to its top speed. So I'm going to recommend single turbo for this car. You can try a couple different ones. If you got money to burn, do what you think is good. But really, at the end of the day, the single turbo is where this car needs it. Elite nitrous bottle, Elite Platinum road suspension, Elite Platinum brakes, Elite Platinum grip tires. You could do the road tires if you want. It's not really going to change much. It's kind of up to you. I like the grip because I want it to turn really good. The road tires are a little bit better on the tarmac, so big O, the road tires might do a little better for you. Just depends. Elite Platinum clutch. We are running the stock transmission. It is the Super Gold 7 speeds. Elite Platinum differential, just because we're bougie like that. If I buy every other part that's Elite, I'm going to do that one too. Auxiliaries nitrous drift, nitrous grip. Get those micro drifts, you guys. Handling all the way to the left, full Beyonce, 100% grip, steering sensitivity, 2 clicks high, that's me. Downforce, run it all the way low. We know this car wants it low, run it low. All the way low. Traction control off, drift entry, brake tap. That is going to finish out our Pagani Huayra. If you skipped around in the video, run this car with the lowest downforce possible. If you've watched to this point, thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. Please like the video. If you're not subscribed, click that button as well. I got lots of builds and we got more content coming. I'm going to link a meme video at the end, which will be the click one that you can. It's Nil Bot going through all of the cars that go 231 in S-Class or faster. Because clickbait's exciting, you guys. Anyway, thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.